our generation know that there's probably always another offer out there. Like the market is so saturated for anything now that you kind of know, well, if I can't get it here, I'm going to find it somewhere else because somewhere else is going to offer the same thing, either for a better price or with a better person or something that, resonates with me more. It's not to do with us being fickle. It's just to do with the fact that I think we understand that there's always another option now.
Let's just say Gen Z presents such mystery to the consumer research world because you act and think and feel differently than almost any generation has before you to a huge degree. So when I said there was earlier that there's a bit of hand wringing about what to do about Gen Z, it's true. So I was talking recently with the head of research for a company whose primary products are focused on Gen Z. Generations kind of float through, and they've done extensive research on millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, and now it's Gen Z. And they got to your generation and kind of went, "Uh-oh, this is a different world here because Gen Z doesn't respond as a rule to the same stimuli, motivations, or any of the same real criteria that brands have traditionally focused on and leveraged to engage people as prior generations." So, at the end of that conversation, I went, "Okay, that's pretty illuminating. What do you do about it?" And she's like, we just talk. We just talk. All of the sophisticated research methods that we've built up over the past couple of decades, they're kind of meaningless with Gen Z. Gen Z is about being real, and we got to figure out how to be real as a brand. So it's a huge challenge. So with that as a kind of overarching idea, I'd like to start off with, just to back up a little bit, what's behind the Z Suite? Why did you start it? How did you start it? How'd you get here? Maybe we can kind of condense that down into a conversation and then get into how you feel and think about brands and your interactions with them. And
Yes, that would be a question for me. Why we started, basically because we were in all of these rooms with all of these big executives and brand leaders who were talking about what Gen Z wants and what they like, but these people were not actually Gen Z. So we thought it would be a great idea to sort of have it come from Gen Z themselves. So does that answer the question?
yeah, really nicely. I mean, so you just kind of put the word out and said, "Hey, friends, people want to talk to us. Do you want to join me in the conversation?" Or was there more structure and intent than that?
Yes, definitely more structure. We started by reaching out to our contacts at universities, looking for the kids that they knew were interested in contributing to retail and brand marketing and technology. So that's how we got our first core group, and then it was word of mouth from there.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations, because I did mention to a few people that we're having this conversation, and actually what ended up happening was this: I got a whole list of things. Make sure you ask them this. Tell me how to do this. I'm like, well, no, I'm just going to listen. So anyway, thank you for the introduction and the context. Um, let's get back to like how brands should deal with you. This is a giant question. So um, let's start with this. I'm going to try and frame this into an actual question. Like, are there brands that you two, representing your entire generation, hope you recognize the weight on your shoulders right now? Um, are there brands that you feel particularly attracted to? Because the general sentiment out there among consumer researchers is that brand Z just doesn't have brand affinities. So what do you think about that?
I don't think
So-
it's the. Oh, Sash, go.
Oh, I was just going to say that I want to put it on the record and on the podcast that when we say Gen Z, it's such a big umbrella. And even within Gen Z, like Mimi and I may be more similar, but then I'm talking to my friends' younger siblings, and they're still Gen Z on the other cusp, but completely different priorities, interests, ways of spending. Um, and I think it's important to recognize that there is no catch-all for Gen Z, and there is a there's a lot of data, but those are the people active on social media, active on voicing their opinion. And then you still have a lot of Gen Z that are just like millennials and just like Gen X, where they don't want to go online, they don't want to voice their opinion, they couldn't care less, and that's a very missed market. But all in all, I think that every Gen Z encompasses everything, and brands should either trying to be a catch-all is going to be difficult, but you can find kind of any specific group and any niche market and hone in on that.
I think that statement, very well said and received, complicated things for marketers in a huge way right there. You know, there's
Definitely.
baked into that. There's no answer that says, here's the easy way, hit this button and you're good. So yeah, good point though. Good point though. Well, let's do it this way then. Rather than put the entire weight of your generation on your two sets of shoulders, which isn't fair. Let's talk about you specifically. Sasha and Mimi. Like, let me just ask Mimi first. We'll start here. Like, are there any brands you feel particularly close to the point where you're like, oh, I think that's a cool brand. I will probably buy that before I buy something else in that category?
I don't think it's so much to do with like how cool I think the brand is. For me, it's very much how the brand treats me. Like what I get, how easy it is to use and what I get from the brand. So, for example, my big one is Singapore Airlines. I love this airlines and I always will, and I will preach about how much I love them. And I think they are the gold standard for flying, just because everything that I've always been told by them or sold by them is always maintained a certain level. Like I've never had a problem that they haven't kind of dealt with very quickly. And so I've built my loyalty up because I've always had a really great experience, not because of what I think the brand is. It's more like how they treat me as a consumer. So it's less to do with like the marketing tips and everything. It's more like when I've actually had to deal with something. How's it going?
So we're gonna have to make another whole series of conversations and episodes based on that statement and idea. I love that. It's super informative too and really instructive. Sash, what about you? Same question. Are there brands that you feel close to the point where you would make a purchase decision towards them?
So I think I could give you specific examples. Maybe that'll help the marketers.
Sure. Yeah.
Listening in. But for example, like I love Mr. Porter watches and vintage threads. I love them because they have a lot of creativity, a lot of unique pieces, a lot of authentic in terms of how they're going about their business process and what are the products they're offering. But I love them especially because when I order from Mr. Porter, I get a handwritten card if it's the holidays, wishing me a Merry Christmas from the team. Vintage Threads sends like little pieces of candy, which sounds sketchy, but as someone in the US and getting those super specific candies that are in London and not elsewhere, it's a small little surprise. It's the small touches there. For example, I'm loyal to Delta. The biggest reason could be is because their headquarters is in Atlanta. So going through the airport is much easier. The customer experience is great, but also they have great partnerships with like American Express. So now I have the credit card, which I'm earning miles on, and then I get a free checked bag. And then you kind of start getting roped into with Amex, where now I have a savings and a checkings because they have better benefits. So it all kind of depends. Like I'm very, in a sense, loyal to Amazon because they have great customer experience. Whatever happens, they're like, don't worry, we got you. And even if it's not anyone's fault, here's your refund, or here's another product, or here's something else. But I think the biggest thing or to our generation is price sensitivity. So yes, we are willing to spend a lot, but is it worth the experience? Is it worth this VIP treatment that I'm going to get? Is it actually worth the quality? And what is the purpose? If this is a shirt that I want for a concert and I'm going to throw out after, then I'm definitely not spending a lot of money on it. So there's a lot of factors in determining your brand loyalty, I would say.
Really well said. So let's talk about both. First of all, you both completely destroyed most of the thinking of market researchers on your generation, just like in 5 minutes. Because I'll tell you that, you know, the broad thinking on it is that your generation as a whole, it really don't have brand loyalty. And of course, we know that to be not necessarily true. But I think what that ends up meaning, once you dig down into the data and the feelings behind your purchase decisions, what that means is your thresholds for brand affinity and value live in different places on this spectrum. Like, as you just said, Sash, it's price. You have extreme price sensitivity. Makes good sense, right? Older generations who may have had a savings account going and a 401k for the past 20 years, maybe not quite so price sensitive. The trick then becomes, like, where's that threshold between like just feeling good about a brand and having meeting your price sensitivities in order to get the purchase? This probably isn't a fair question actually, but when you're thinking about buying something like that, are you thinking about it in terms of like, say, Singapore Airlines? Oh gosh, there's this other airlines here that can get me back to wherever I want to go at half the price? Or is my affinity for Singapore Airlines so strong that, you know what, I got to support these people? I mean, there's going to be some threshold there price wise where you make that kind of decision. Do you have any sense, and maybe we can just take your examples, your hypothetical examples, and think about, okay, what would that look like? What would a competitor have to offer me so I didn't take Singapore Airlines? What would American Airlines or some other airline have to offer me so that I wasn't quite so bonded to Delta? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I'm obviously now UK based, so I don't use Singapore Airlines as much, but I get offered point systems and reward systems. And, the same way that Sash was talking about Amex and Delta, British Airways in the UK has the same thing. So, my loyalty to my choices change depending on that. And even though Ryanair would offer me a cheaper flight or EasyJet, I would normally go with British Airways because I know that I'm making back a portion of my money somewhere else. Like, I know that, okay, fine, I'm spending 100 quid more here, but my checked baggage is included, and then I'm going to make back X on these points that I can use for my Uber or cashback. So it's very much aware of, this may cost more right now, but in the long run, what am I saving? It's kind of forward thinking about my spending.
Okay. Also, that's not typical of prior generations. Mine in specific were just like, hey, this is cool, let's buy it. As a rule, not a great idea, but learn from us. What about you, Sash?
We're very impulsive as well. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Like, what do those impulses look like? But
Yeah.
Let's go back to like Delta, for instance, or any other brand you wanted to talk about. Like, where is that? I mean, what are the other considerations that you might be thinking through that would influence you to go somewhere else?
So I think, and I might be unfair to prior generations because I haven't lived amongst them to know their way of thinking, but I think cost benefit analysis and opportunity cost is a very big decision factor for our generation. So now I'm looking, I'm like, oh, okay, Spirit is $100 cheaper than Delta, but Spirit, I'm not going to be able to take on my 2 carry-ons. They're going to haggle me. I'm going to have to pay for a checked bag. I'm going to have to pay for this. And then my flight is 100% always delayed when I'm flying Spirit. So you know what? I'd rather pay the $100 at Delta. But then if it's like $400, nah, screw it. I'm just going to go with the cheaper airlines.
Right. So there is clearly some price threshold in there that would make some sense.
Yes. And like you pointed out, it definitely has to do a lot with age, because I think maybe when we're in our 30s and 40s, and hopefully we've done better savings than I'm doing right now, then the decision, it stops becoming as price sensitive. But I would say that opportunity cost is always the factor. Is, well, I can get it for the same price here and they treat me better, or I can get it here and it's going to come 3 days earlier, or I'm going to get it here and they have a loyalty program, so why not?
I'd love to spend a little bit of time unpacking both your responses to that question, because it indicates that you're looking at the variables, which, everybody makes impulse purchases, but in these two cases, you've both mentioned the competitors and how the points might be worked out, what the experience is like, and other variables. So there's a lot more that goes into just buying an airline ticket in these two cases than just buying an airline ticket. You have an awareness of some of the other competitive variables out there. So how do you figure that stuff out? Are you people uh, that keep a running spreadsheet of the points and miles you could accumulate and their values? When it comes time to book an airline ticket, are you kind of like, okay, I'm on British Airways over here and I'm on Singapore over here, or, EasyJet or whatever, and I'm figuring it out simultaneously in the moment? But how does that work? Because clearly you're both very aware consumers, at least in these two examples.
I think specifically for big ticket, like big item purchases, I think for smaller items, I tend to be quite impulsive, but it's when you start talking, hundreds of pounds, that I'm very particular about what I do. But I definitely do it in the moment. So when I'm trying to book a flight, I'll have 7 tabs open and I'll be going across pages, looking at, okay, so this is base flight price, but you don't include checked baggage, but this one will. What are the different kind of variables? And also, a reward system makes a huge difference with our generation. Like I've noticed with my friends as well, when we're booking things, we'll all go towards what we already have an existing account with, because we get rewards and points for it. And we will, like, I've had friends that have swapped from certain kind of brands of point systems to different ones because it's free shipping, or if you spend X, you get these points which you can redeem back. It's very focused on kind of what else can we get out of a deal, not just, okay, I'm spending this money and I get this back. It's very focused on what else can I get
Beyond just the price.
Yeah. Beyond just the product and the price, what else are you offering me that's going to make me want to keep coming back?
Yeah, I second Mimi on that. Great point.
What else? What else can you give me? Yeah, and just so you know, I mean, and you speak to brand marketers through Z Suite, your Z Suite efforts all the time, so you probably know this, but brands are hyper focused on all of the non-price, non-product variables that they can leverage to influence your purchase decisions. But I think it came as a surprise to a lot of the folks I've spoken with that your generation is so aware of the power of your purchase. Like, you're willing to literally, and you have the ability to cross shop in ways that prior generations could, but not quite as easily. They probably weren't quite as aware of that. And at least in the case of you two as individuals, really seem to have a good handle on what those other value points might be. So did that just show up because now you're in your 20s? I'm assuming you're in your 20s. Because look, I'm at this stage of life, I got to understand this stuff. Or when did you start becoming so aware of hey, wait a second, these people want my money. What are they willing to give me for it?
I personally became aware of it when they started telling us, wow, we really need to pay attention to these people because they're spending a lot. But also timing wise, that's when I moved from Jordan to here. That's when I started college. That's when I stopped being on my parents' allowance. And a lot of different factors.
So kind of when you needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I mean, I think for me, it became when I realized that I actually need to pay rent and buy my groceries and, be able to live and heat my house. And then the sad realization that, like, everyone talks about the cost of living in the UK the entire time. So constantly hearing about how the cost of living has gone up. And therefore, I'm going to need to save more money to be able to afford to buy anywhere or to be able to afford, you know, the life that I want, or very fortunately, the life that my parents have kind of provided me. So then I then started really focusing on, okay, how can I get the best out of this, but also save the most so that I'm not just burning through money as it comes in.
Interesting. Really interesting. Again,
But there is one thing
Go
that
ahead.
like confuses me, slash, I don't know if it's reality or just miscommunication from the marketers. But in business school, the first thing we learn is you have the entire market, you have to segment the market, you have to understand your consumer, what is their age range, what are their priorities, what is their lifestyle. But then when we come to talk about Gen Z, all of that out's the window. It's how are we going to sell to Gen Z, and how are we going to, encapsulate this 20-year-old or 10-year-old generation and all of their interest, when at the core of marketing, that's impossible. So I don't know why or what we've done to kind of break that exception and to looking at us collectively as a whole generation, because you do have individuals that are brand conscious in terms of sustainability, in terms of how they treat their workers, where do they source their products. And then you have others where they care so much about the brand recognition. What are people going to say when they see me wearing it, or when they see me flying Delta, or when they see me, in this lounge or this VIP section? So I think that, and in today's age of data, I think the marketers really need to work even more with sales and customer experience and deliver that holistic, what else can we get out of this kind of thinking.
A groundswell starts small, quietly building into something powerful, unstoppable. That's also how market momentum works. If you're launching a startup, introducing a new product, rebranding, or rolling out a new service or initiative, it's not enough to simply show up. You need to build momentum strategically. Specializing in go-to-market strategy, Groundswell works with organizations at every stage, creating custom plans that help products and brands break through the noise and grow, ensuring a launch that doesn't just happen, it sticks. From understanding your target audience to perfecting your positioning, Groundswell's approach ensures you're not just catching the market's attention, but keeping it. With expert guidance, your product moves from launch day to long-term success, turning that initial wave of excitement into sustained growth. If you're ready to take your product, service, or brand to market, it might be time to think about a Groundswell strategy. Visit groundswell.cc to learn more.
I mean, since I put the weight of your whole generation on your two shoulders, I'm going to take the weight of all of marketing out there. Seems fair. Yeah, so you bring up a really great point. Like, look, 10 years ago, the world didn't have the ability to understand who you were as a consumer on such a granular level. The only thing marketers could do were to build out segments where you kind of fit into loose groups, and generations became a fairly easy, and in certain sectors, a pretty effective way of understanding your target market. But you're absolutely right. To base your marketing effort, your brand effort, your CX effort on generational insights alone it's just, you're going to crash and burn so hard, especially now, because it would be lazy marketing to do so. We have the ability to understand so much more about what you're thinking, more importantly, what you're feeling, and how that translates into what you're doing. So I don't think you did anything to trigger this bad behavior. I think that, frankly, I don't know of any marketers who would. That's not necessarily true. I do know a few marketers whose products are so focused on Gen Z that it's profitable for them to look at your generation as a generation, but that's really unique. That's a super unique circumstance. Everybody else, really, we want to know about your behaviors and your feelings and your activities and all of that. So you bring up a great point. It's well taken. I don't resent you for bringing that up to my
Oh,
my
thank God.
generations. No, we're okay, sir. We're okay. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. And talk about some of the things that certain cohorts in your generation are deeply embedded in, which are really unique from prior generations, specifically gaming. Are either of you gamers, active gamers?
Unfortunately,
No, and no. I'm
I
speaking to the
dabble
two.
with an occasional game, but like nothing online. I guess it's occasionally with an Xbox if I'm with people.
Okay, but it's not a thing.
Not
yeah, I
really.
don't own a headset nor a gaming chair.
Yeah, I don't only if it's only if other
You're
people
the
have it.
only two members of your generation like that, by the way. I'm just putting it out there.
Well, see,
No.
you think so, but
You'd be
so many of my friends and people I know are not gamers as well.
No kidding.
most of mine aren't
Legos
either.
as a game.
Is that right? Say again?
Sash is very into Legos.
I am.
So it's a gaming-ish kind of a thing, but I think it falls outside of traditional gaming.
Yeah,
Good point,
we're the
though.
digital native generation, so if it's not online gaming, it doesn't count.
Right. That doesn't
Apparently
count.
not. I love a board game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced you two are actually Gen Y. I'm sorry to let you know that, but you're not behaving like your counterparts. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't tell my grandma, then she's gonna say, "See, you're old enough to get married now."
I'm not prepared to have that conversation with you. I can have no influence there.
But I will
So,
say, like, I have seen, for example, Roblox doing a great job kind of bringing the outside world inside gaming versus like Minecraft, where they've taken gaming and gone outside. Um, I think those two are like successful kind of gaming um, processes or ways that are way more efficient than, Meta's
oh
goal.
yeah, right, right. Interesting. Well, the reason I bring up gaming is because the exact statistic escapes me, but it's something like 85% of the Gen Z generation are active gamers. This is a huge percentage, way more than any prior generation, just giant, giant, giant numbers. Um, that could just be a US number, I'm not entirely clear on it. Maybe that's not universal, but suffice to say, there's just a giant number of people in your age group that spend a lot of time in online gaming, just a ton. And I offended Sash.
Run
So
away.
yeah, but marketers are left with, this is a place where they've never operated in the gaming world before. Like it's completely new territory. There are completely new passions there. There are, you know, if you're a passionate, active gamer, you're probably you probably feel things about your hobby, your pastime, whatever you call that, on a level that most people in prior generations just haven't. And marketers are really struggling with how to deal with that, because I think smart marketers will recognize that if you meet people at a point of their passions, whatever those are, you have a really good chance of connecting with them. And that doesn't always mean selling, but let's just say connecting with them. But gaming is so foreign to so many people, older people. I mean, I'm not going to go into my own generational, but I'm old, and as a marketer, like, can I just bring the brands I represent and just walk them into the gaming world and say, hey guys, we're here, let's interact? I mean, I've seen those kinds of disasters happen before when marketers just weren't aware of the new contexts, of the new kind of universal rules they had to play by. So granted, neither of you are addicted gamers, but you probably do share the same kinds of passion levels about your own activities that that the rest of your generation does. Can you speak to how marketers or brands might introduce themselves to you in your worlds of passion, whatever those passion points are?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, gaming, the reason why it's so popular is a fundamental sense of belonging, a sense of community. So while the terrain and the landscape is new and foreign, it's nothing that human nature has, you know, everyone, it's a very easy and convenient way to get online, do something fun, interact with people, have this sense of community over shared passions, as you say, without necessarily, you know, needing to go outside, or there's no time for it, you know. You can log on at 11 p.m. in your time and play with people halfway across the world. So I think that's particularly why gaming has become so robust and so popular. But it's for the same reasons that your generation wanted to go outside or wanted to go to live events or uh, you know, other sorts. But I think that just kind of, you know, that's why I think Meta failed, because it was trying to create this new thing and trying to just jam pack it and create an artificial kind of lifestyle. Whereas the companies that have had successful integrations with gaming and entering the digital verse did it like it made sense for that partnership. It wasn't just a random, oh, this brand, I'm just going to go online and enter this gaming world because it's lucrative. And that's kind of, I think, where the word authenticity comes into play. And, you know, like, why are you here? You know, leave us in our own little microcosm and our own little world.
Yeah, I want to let that one just hang in the air because it's a great answer and it's a great perspective. Mimi, anything to add to that?
I think people underestimate how much of gaming is just social. That it's not. I remember during COVID when Among Us became like a massive thing, but it was because I wasn't going out and seeing my friends anymore. So it meant that we could have a group call or we'd be messaging, playing the game, but we'd all be doing it together, kind of having that sense of like hanging out together or doing an activity together that we couldn't really do. So especially now, I think with especially my guy mates growing up, where we all kind of live all over the world, I know a bunch of them log on and play a game just because then they're like hanging out together without actually having to be in the same place.
Right.
So it gives them a platform that isn't just sitting down and having a natter on a phone, because apparently none of them can do that. So it lets them do something whilst they're basically having the equivalent of a catch up.
So
I think
it's social.
Yeah, it's very social.
Yeah, and like in a sense, you know, people being obsessed with League of Legends is the same reason people were obsessed with Star Trek and Harry Potter. And it is this kind of like you want to escape the real world in a sense and kind of live in this new little sphere and this different world. But it now has elements kind of like Club Penguin, where it is those social interactions, but you also get to play a game. Like I'm gonna go back to Mimi's point of the what else. Like, yeah, Club Penguin was fun, but now I want to also like do something fun on the game and not just talk to people. So now you can talk and shop and shoot people and, you know, uh, have all these aspects of kind of real life be integrated into the game. And then like Roblox, you're now not only playing the game, you're designing the game and you're
Right.
helping develop it as you play.
I'm also going to let that just hang in there because I want people to just really hear that. Sash, you mentioned a few minutes ago that the idea of authenticity plays into your decisions. You know, the people you're interacting with, is it an authentic reason for you to be there? You know, are you being real with me? Like, I think that there was a lot of talk about that with as a factor in brand engagement for prior generations. But the general sentiment with your generation tends to be, yes, this generation has a strong desire to interact with brands and people, celebrities, athletes, whoever they are, that they feel are authentic. But you're also super fickle. Like I found a better deal over here, so I'm out. Or you pissed me off on social, so I'm out. Or, you know, it could be, you know, the high demands to bond with you, but then also really low thresholds for bailing out in the relationship, which is not a fair and kind thing to say, but that's kind of what the data suggests. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. I mean, I do, but I think that's because our generation know that there's probably always another offer out there. Like the market is so saturated for anything now that you kind of know, well, if I can't get it here, I'm going to find it somewhere else because somewhere else is going to offer the same thing, either for a better price or with a better person or something that, you know, resonates with me more. It's not to do with us being fickle. It's just to do with the fact that I think we understand that there's always another option now.
And I would
So-
say, oh, sorry, man.
No. So there you go.
I would say we are loyal to certain attributes, values, ways of going about life or transactions or interactions. And so we become loyal to the brands that adopt and embody those shared kind of characteristics. And once your brand does not adopt that value anymore, then you've lost my loyalty. So, for example, if I was loyal to a company because of their customer experience and I had a bad interaction on social, I'm not leaving the brand because of one bad interaction, but it's kind of that inauthenticity that you don't really care about customer experience, or else this wouldn't have happened in the first place. If I'm loyal about price and you gave me the best price, I'm going to be loyal to your brand until a better price is presented. So I think that's kind of the authenticity is also depending on the Gen Zer, is some people want the brand to be authentic in terms of how they source, you know, are they saving the environment? Are they being sustainable? And sometimes people want them to be authentic with how they treat them. And some people just want to feel authentic in terms of what the products are being offered. Is this, you know, mass produced and everyone's going to wear it the next day? Or am I really going to get a compliment of, oh my God, where'd you even get this?